Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
You can? It's really impossible to hear you guys.
Hold on. Also known as also makes me.
Right to the let's call it, or I'll call the roll.
Okay, please respond if you're present this evening. John Aiken.
Here.
Omari Davis.
Here.
Robert Dutka is excused. Alex Foster. Here. Carmela Ham is excused. Gerald Laporte.
Here.
Joan Lawrence. She's on her way. Okay. Robert Medin. Rebecca Meyer. Here. Katie Myers is excused. Mark Turnbull.
Here.
Andrew Wenchel.
Here.
And Dick Woodruff. Okay, we do have a quorum.
Dick, if you're speaking to us, we can't hear you. You've been muted.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Sorry. You know, I can hear you guys when you speak loudly. Like I could hear Cynthia really well, but I didn't hear anything that Omari said. So if you could speak up a little bit, that'd be really helpful. Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks for the. Okay, well, with that, we'll dive into explanation of the public hearing. And welcome welcome on to the meeting. So we'll dive into this. So effective September 1st, 2022, new state legislation now requires certain county appointed commissions, including the HALRB, to have an in-person quorum as its monthly business. HALRB hearings are provided in a hybrid environment, both in person and streamed online. Members of the public may attend, participate either virtually or in person. Members of the board and members of the public joining us this evening. Today's meeting is available to stream via the county website, via the Microsoft Teams link. There's also a dial-in phone option for those who wish to use it. Board members, presenters, speakers lose internet connectivity during today's meeting. Please reconnect with us via phone. Please keep your device muted and your video turned off until you're called on to speak. Public speakers not sponsoring items on the agenda. Pre-registration to speak online. Pre-registration to speak online at today's meeting was required. Speaker slips are available at the front of the room for those in-person speakers who wish to speak here. I'll call on you to speak after the presentation of the agenda item. Meeting chat is active for participants who need technical assistance only. It should not be used for discussion, public comment, questions, or about agenda items or requests for more information. All public comments must be shared verbally for record during the signed public testimony period. All voting will be done by roll call. And lastly, there's a public forum. Today's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website. All information associated with today's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to freedom of information requirements. And with that, we can review the minutes for February 2023. Do you have any comments on the meeting? Hearing none, I'll move that we approve the February 2023 HALRB meeting minutes. And just one reminder too that with it being February, just be sure that you were here in February. If you weren't in February, just a thing about voting.
We'll have March and April for you.
For a second.
Second.
So please respond yes if you support the draft minutes from February. Mr. Aiken,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Ms. Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Laporte,
Yes.
Ms. Meyer,
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Turnbull,
Abstain.
Mr. Wenchel,
Yes.
and Mr. Woodruff.
Yes.
everybody. So with that, we'll move into the public hearing for our COAs and one item on the consent agenda. Is there anybody that'd like to pull out consent agenda?
I can like consent agenda. Question. I ain't checked for the point of order.
Okay. Let me know. Okay.
Yes.
Give
Okay.
us a minute.
Yes.
Yeah, the only question I had was the drawings that we got showed an arched gate,
Mhm.
and it said that the design review committee approved a straight gate instead of, it looked like the old drawings were included rather than the new design, which is what we're approving tonight. So I think we need to make sure that what's approved is what was proposed, not what was
Right.
rejected.
So I was including in the packet for review, the stamped plans, which had the stamped date on it. So you knew those were the approved plans, and then a photograph of what had been proposed, because they don't have drawings for it's a retroactive approval. And so this, I'll share it. So should. Oh, wait, maybe I am, but this is now on the screen. Not even sharing, never mind. Everything. So, so this is a photograph of the gate in situ, which is the flat-topped gate that they are now applying for.
And that's this.
This is what they would
And
like to
included in
have.
the packet, just for your review, I'd included the stamped plans that show the amendment. So this is where the fence was, and it has the location of the gate, and then the picture of
See,
what
that's
was
what I'm
stamped.
looking at.
So it was approved previously.
Yes.
They prefer the flat top.
Okay. DRC also.
Yeah.
As long as people because I didn't understand that, and I thought that's what was being proposed. Not supposed to be.
Okay.
Right.
I see.
Yeah.
I will, next time I'll add another note that says approved plans. And so you know this is the previous COA set.
Other than that, I have no objection. Moves that we adopt the item on the.
Sorry about that, Barry.
I'll second that.
All right, so please say yes if you support the fence amendment. Mr. Aiken,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Ms. Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Laporte,
Yes.
Ms. Lawrence,
Yes.
Ms. Meyer,
Yes.
Mr. Turnbull,
Yes.
Mr. Winchell,
Yes.
and Mr. Woodrum.
Yes.
Mr. Medlin.
Oh, great. Didn't see you speak in.
Were we voting for?
On the, were you here for any of the conversation? Okay, so you'll abstain. But if not,
And Lauren is going to present this. Before we do that, Mr. Khan, have you joined the meeting? Mr. Khan, if you're speaking, you are muted. I'll let Lauren present the project.
Good evening, everybody. This is our first discussion agenda for a form-based code project involving 2910 Columbia Pike for COA 23-06. We saw this project come last month when you all approved a COA to change the windows into a foldable window in the existing window opening. But just as a reminder, this is the former Arlington Hardware building, which is identified in the Commercial Form-Based Code as a historic facade. The hardware store opened back in 1931, and it was operated by a family until it closed in 2004. So the applicant is proposing to install new signage for their business. The proposal involves removing the existing horizontal sign and existing vertical blade sign from the previous business. And now is proposing to put up a new horizontal sign measuring 150 inches by 60 inches. This will be installed above the main entrance, and then below the vertical blade sign, it will feature the building's address, which is 2910, and cursive lettering below, which will read food redefined. The new vertical blade sign will measure 22 inches by 120 inches, and both will be installed into the historic facade. So that you know, the signs will be illuminated LED channel letters, will involve a white acrylic face with black trim and black aluminum returns. The font of the lettering and the numbers is supposed to be complementary to the building's simple design. They also have agreed to make any repairs to the historic facade if there's any punctures that aren't being used, as well as if they need to clean the historic facade once they remove the existing signs right now. And if it seems like that's necessary, they've agreed to be in contact with the Historic Preservation Program so we can kind of provide some guidance on how to properly clean the historic facade. So the DRC saw this at their April 15th meeting, and some of the things that were kind of brought up was the fact that the design was different than what you're seeing tonight, and it was brought up that it was a bit challenging to see some of the text or really kind of be able to read what was being put up on the signs, and so it was kind of suggested to consider looking at maybe a different type of font so it could be a little bit more legible. And it was also suggested that to make the sign a little bit longer because the sign that the DRC saw was a bit shorter. And so the applicant was receptive of these changes or suggestions, as well as just kind of reconfiguring the design pretty much all together. And so what you're seeing tonight is kind of new to everybody at the table. But it definitely, with the staff recommendation, we felt that the overall design of the signs, was consistent with signage that you'll find along Columbia Pike, as well as we felt that it followed the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation, specifically standard number 10. That basically it's an alteration that could easily be reversed without any adverse effect to the property. And the changes to the design of the sign is definitely reflective of at least what we are interpreting from the staff of what the DRC had made as a recommendation. So that is the conclusion to the staff report.
And I have the drawing of what the DRC reviewed at their meeting, if anyone wants to see the change in the design. Mr. Khan, have you joined the call? Yeah, I sent him a reminder email, but I'm just going to share the image of what he has submitted before, just so you can see how much he's worked to try to have this look more like. Okay, not okay. Try that again. He really wanted to make it look more like the image that is the sign that is already on the building, and so he tried to go with this more deco. Is this? There it is. Okay, So this is what he had originally presented, which as you can see is far less similar to the P. Brennan's Irish bar sign. And Andy had some concerns about the legibility of the numbers and understanding what it was, whether it was a restaurant. And so since then, this is sorry, everyone, being beaten.
There you
Okay, so now you can see that this, and I have included the P. Brennan's Irish pub, so you can see it has those two lines, and Robert Dunca said he quite liked that like deco look. And I included the Arlington hardware sign, which also had those lines. And so the applicant has chosen to incorporate that into his design.
I mean, the yellow lines or which lines?
Well, the two, yes, just the fact that there are two parallel lines, he's chosen to incorporate that, and he changed it to a black color, which I another request. Because he couldn't reuse the strip, the two lines at the bottom. He was asked if he could reuse that, and it wasn't possible to reuse it, so he chose to incorporate it in a new way in these two horizontal lines.
So in that respect, that second photo is a bit misleading. It's still a double line sign.
Oh, well, this was just, you mean this one?
Well, you go back to see the profile view from the street side.
Oh, yes, because it hasn't been removed
Okay.
yet, because he won't remove it until we give him permission. And that leads to, Rebecca had asked, what does the brick look like behind it? And he doesn't know yet. And that's why also one of the reasons he made the sign a bit bigger.
My friends in keeping with the historic nature of it, and I may have misunderstood this at DRC. I thought that we were keeping the long horizontal with the white stripes, and especially seeing a photo of it when it was the hardware store, seeing that same aesthetic, and it may not be the exact one with the replica. I think I would prefer to see that stay on than the two horizontal yellow or orange stripes. And then I think also having it be one line instead of two, because I think proportionally it starts to get busy and just deviates a lot more from the historic nature of it. I think, and I know part of this is business preference of everything, but I think if the horizontal or the vertical sign had the spoon and fork, I think that would be a way to minimize the height, and then to do 2910 food redefined all in one line. But they're open to however they'd like to interpret it. I just would prefer to see it longer instead of taller.
I agree with that. I remember when we originally approved the design for P. Brennan's, they really made an effort to try to put it like it was when Arlington Hardware was there. And I think, you got different titles, so maybe it doesn't fit in as well, but this to me doesn't evoke the design of the Arlington Hardware sign at all. I mean, if you put it on a, 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't think I checked it. I picked this out as something that evokes that sign. It's so, I mean, the previous version was, I don't think they even tried to evoke the sign. Okay, now they're trying, but I think they need to try. And the vertical sign, I noticed the numbers don't seem to be in the middle. That kind of bothers me too. I don't know if that's just the drawing is incorrect, but it doesn't look like it's a good drawing. Okay,
The
unless
spacing is not
the spacing is,
even.
yeah.
That's what you're.
It's kind of right.
Redefined as, oh yeah.
think in the previous version, it was right down the center.
But, yeah. Comments, questions?
I tend to agree with having two parallel lines, which could very easily be done with the horizontal sign. They could be done in narrow color, if the applicant wanted to, and either have none at the top or maybe just a very faint one. They could also be done. I think having two parallel lines that are closer together than the ones on the example be more appropriate.
I agree with that too. I mean, lines as well as just maybe light there. It does seem to clash a bit and deviate quite a bit from the previous signage.
I know that that's a huge problem, that it's different from the previous signage and it's going to be a different place, but probably. But just in terms of the elements of the Arlington hardware and that were also adopted by the previous restaurant, those could be incorporated. Just the two parallel lines on the bottom of the sign, or possibly even on the top.
Dick, do you have any comment on it?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with those who are critical of it. I don't think that sign really respects the Art Deco look of either the hardware sign or the Brennan sign. It's just sort of kind of weird.
Appreciate that they lengthened the sign a little bit, but I wonder if they went far enough. I think that kind of the linearity of the existing sign kind of emphasizes that Art Deco, and it kind of fits with that vibe. This still feels like it's as long as it needs to be, and kind of like Rebecca said, it projects upwards instead of kind of streamlining. I think even if the design can just kind of extend a little bit, and I guess that's kind of hard to do at 2910 is the extent of the name, but graphically and visually, proportionally to me.
Yeah, and I would also add also to that the sort of the forehead, sorry, the vertical sign a little bit too much as well. So again, sort of that maybe increasing the horizontality a little bit and less sort of the height of it as well. Mr. Khan online by chance here.
Mr. Khan, you haven't joined us, have you?
Do we know, so the P. Brennan sign, the vertical, I guess overall height, seems like it would not leave room for 5 foot. Are they going back in with a shorter vertical?
Based on the measurements?
Mhm.
No, he plans to literally just take the laminate out and put the new laminate in.
So then is the sign being lowered to where the red is?
Like it there, that one. At least like the bottom, that under your pine appears to be like where the red portion is, maybe.
I guess I just wonder scale wise, if it fits, as well as still questioning the proportions of it.
So you're wondering, sorry, if the black blade sign you're talking about,
Yes.
whether or not it will fit with the proportion of the facade channel sign? Or are you
I guess
wondering
the
if,
way that it's proposed right now, which I personally am not a fan of with respect to the historic character of it, but I don't know that the blade and the 5 foot tall sign will fit on the facade.
The ways, okay, so it's, yes, the two next to each other. Okay.
So is there 15 feet of distance between the bottom, that red band, and the top red? Actually, the P. Brennan sign goes to the very top.
I think for me, it's just another justification for why the sign needs to be more.
It's like the P. Brennan's, maybe it's just the angle, it's almost to the. So it appears that it would be long.
Any comments or questions?
It is definitely.
Graphic. And I do appreciate this one though. Flames coming off. That's right. That's food was spicy.
That.
Hello?
Mr.
Mr.
Khan?
Khan?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. I was on mute. I've been trying to say something and none of you guys could hear me. So I have good evening. I can hardly hear a couple of comments being made. So the P. Brennan, you guys keep talking about P. Brennan. You guys really need to realize that that was the name of their restaurant. The name of my restaurant is literally just numbers. And the last meeting that I had with you guys, because of that, and I added those two words on the bottom, which is basically food redefined, that was added because of the comment that was made. And the vertical sign, the hardware, I'm not touching the hardware. It's only the plexiglass that's been removed from the vertical sign. So if my restaurant's name is only numbers, and I'm trying my best basically to make sure I meet the standard, and I'm trying to add some words so people can understand what kind of place this is. And for that reason, I added the word food and I added the word redefined. I'm just really confused. I'm like, what is there that is not meeting the standard? I'm like, the numbers, the font, everything is very simple.
Yeah, so I guess this, fortunately and graphically, a lot of the comments have been essentially that let's see something more horizontal and also less vertical. There's also some question as to whether or not the sign fits sort of given what's being shown here. Like for instance, is there 5 feet between sort of the bottom of the current red band and the bottom of the current red band and the bottom of the vertical sign? There's some worry that potentially as drawn, it doesn't fit as well. So those are the sort of the two highlights of things. I mean, other things that have been said, but again, it's mostly been about sort of horizontality of the proportions of the sign. That's been the sort of the highlights of things. But you know, there have been other comments as well, obviously.
Okay, so when
Comments were about the horizontal sign, not the vertical sign.
okay,
That's correct.
okay, so the horizontal sign is, if you guys look at the previous, not my design, but I'm talking about P. Brennan, they had the little black box going all the way under the channels. So yeah, so that black box is basically the reason I added the parallel line on the bottom is to use that, to have that line, because there was a comment that was made last time in the last meeting, because the box is getting removed. It's a very old design, and I'm not even honestly sure if the box is still working or not, because place has been closed down for a while. So because of that box, that is the reason I added that line, so it will sit at the same place where the box originally was, and the channels are going right above there. So I'm just really trying to understand what is it there that is not being right. So if there's something, because the time is clicking, and I'm like, I need to open this place in June, and I understand there's things that I need to do, so I don't want to do something again if and then come back next month and then there's some issue again because I'm trying to open this place. It's taking way too long, sir. So I know that I have to follow some procedures, which I'm happily able to. I'm more than willing to do it, but I need to find out what seems to be the issue, because I cannot change the numbers. That's the name of my business. So if there's wordings that I need to add, I'll be more than happy to add it. But if you guys are asking me to completely change the name of my restaurant, that's out of the question.
No, Mr. Khan, that's not it at all. I think that what we were discussing, and I hope you can hear me, is that if you notice the length of the Brennan's Irish Pub sign, it appears to be quite a bit longer than the one you're proposing. And so if you stretched yours out so it was longer and made that bottom line that you have into two parallel lines separated by a little bit of space, I think that would help make it look more horizontal. We're not asking you to change anything about the name. It's just this particular design element and the size of it.
Okay, so this size of the sign is literally is 100. One second, let me open that up here. It's if I'm not mistaken, it's 150 inches. So that's literally 14 feet. So that is little over 14 feet. That's a very long sign, man. It's not a small sign. I don't know if you guys ever been to that location. If anybody ever drove by that location.
Many times.
So so we have literally close to, I think, about 18, little less than 18 feet right now. So my sign is close to 15 feet. It's not a huge difference.
I think Lauren wants to chime in here real quick. Lauren?
Hi. Yeah, I'm understanding what Mr. Khan is kind of. I'm understanding both sides of what's going on with the discussion, but I do find that it feels like it would be rather challenging for Mr. Khan to elongate the sign much more, since it is just 2910. Then you've got the graphic of the fork and the spoon, and then the food redefined. I'm having a hard time trying to see how this sign could get longer, because the previous business was 3 words and could be that long. So I'm also trying to see how much longer he could make the sign to kind of make it feel like what we're comfortable with, what we remember of the previous business. Before I continue my thought, Ms. Horwitz, I'm very proud that you are exercising while you are in the meeting. I think you need to take your video off because this is being recorded. Please continue your exercises, but I think you should take off the video. Thank you. One of the things I also just kind of want to point out is, I apologize that my staff report didn't put it in there, but the signage is not a character defining feature of this building. And so there's something we have to keep in mind, that businesses change and therefore names of businesses change. And I know we're not asking Mr. Khan to change the name of his business, because that would not make sense. But I think it's the matter of, I think that the pub that was there before was able to take advantage of the Arlington hardware sign being very long. So I'm wondering if there's a way that we can kind of come up with some compromise instead, where I think one of the things that is kind of reminiscent of the Arlington hardware sign are the kind of the 2 silver lines that are underneath on the horizontal sign above the entrance. And I'm wondering if there's a way that maybe we could ask Mr. Khan to consider that into the design of his sign. But I'm also having a hard time trying to understand how we are dictating his the graphics that are going along with his business. And it's different than what was there before. But I'm also thinking of the fact that with the historic facade with Columbia Pike, the commercial Columbia Pike, we're making sure that the historic facade is retained, is preserved, is taken care of well. And Mr. Khan has shown that he would do that with the way that the sign would be put up on the historic facade, as well as cleaning it, as well as fixing any punctures. So there's some kind of, I just want to kind of bring that up with the discussion.
And yeah, I would like to add one last comment. Those two lines and the black lights that you guys see for the P. Brennan, there's no way possible for me to keep it because it's running all the way from point A to point B, and that sign is way too long. So if I just keep it and remove the channels right above it and put down my sign, it will not fit properly.
I don't think we're asking you to do that. I think what we're asking you to do is just take a look at that bottom yellow line, yellow-orange line, and divide it into two lines, perhaps. It won't be exactly the same as the other. It doesn't have to be, but it will give a bit closer approximation to two parallel lines. I think that's
One second. I'm looking at the bottom line. Can you repeat that comment? What exactly you want me to look at? The bottom line?
Bottom yellow line.
Yes,
Make it into two lines separated by a space.
Okay, so instead of one line, you guys want me to go ahead spread it into two lines. So we'll have two lines on the bottom. And how about the top one?
I don't know that anybody expressed comments about the top.
I think Dick wanted to make a comment as well. Dick, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to prolong it, but I think my understanding from Mr. Khan was that the proposal to add the language underneath the 2910 sign came in response to a conversation at the DRC, if I'm not mistaken. One way to increase the sort of horizontality of the sign would be to take that food redefined piece off. And that would give it a more horizontal look.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I think so my sort of recommendation or idea for this is that I think it might be a good idea to defer this to the DRC next month, given where we are with things and given the time and sort of everything else. It's not the ideal way to sort of deal with this, but I think that might be the best way to maybe keep things the ball sort of rolling and things otherwise. So as any sort of objections to that, we can make a motion to that essentially. Okay. So essentially, I'll move to do that. If there are any objections, there, we can discuss those, I guess, after the motion's made. So I move that HLB. I move that HLB defer approval or denial of the blaze sign and facade sign for 2910 Columbia Pike until further review by the DRC. And then, because the DRC could put it on a consent agenda, so I guess.
But what exactly do I have to do? I'm confused. So do I have to? Is there suggestions being made that I need to follow and resend it to you guys? What exactly I have to do from my end?
You're right. I mean, we'll have can we send them sort of conditional meeting minutes, sort of just listing, I guess, what we discussed here tonight.
Mr. Khan, staff can follow up with you tomorrow on some next steps. so it's clear what's expected. And then the board would want you to return to the design review committee next month with some refinements to the design. But staff can walk you through what was discussed tonight to help you prepare
Yes,
for
ma'am.
that. Okay?
That's fine. Ma'am. Thank you so much, guys.
Can I make a suggestion?
Please.
I mean, given what Mr. Khan said about his time constraints and wanting to open the restaurant, if it's going to go back to the DRC, can the DRC just give conditional approval to it? So he doesn't have to wait until the the May meeting of the HLRB?
No, we can't do that. No. Procedurally, no, Dick.
DRC could opt to put it on the consent agenda for the May.
Because guys, it's gonna take a good 4 to 6 weeks, even with the county, after you guys give us approval. So my time is really like I'm cutting extremely short, and it's just I understand there's a process that you guys have to follow, and I gotta follow it too. But if I can just send you follow all your recommendations and redo the design again and resend it to you guys, is there any way possible that we can have that done in the first meeting so I don't have to wait until the end of the month?
Well, it seems to me that if he gets it put on the consent agenda, then he can at least get moving with the production of the sign. Why not?
Because he wouldn't have a permit.
So then we would have to do it the other way around, where we would go for a conditional approval pending DRC
Acceptance. We've done that before.
recommendation, rather than allowing, because we cannot give procedural power, particularly when there will not be support.
Yeah, let's at least do that. At least do that. That'll at least speed things up a little bit. I mean, sort of, putting in their ideas,
Okay, so the motion on the table though is to defer. Did you type out? Did you catch it? Okay, can you read back what was suggested?
What was originally suggested was, I move that the HALRB defer approval or denial of the blade sign and facade sign proposed for 2910 Columbia Pike until further review by the DRC.
need to amend that, so.
There was no second.
No second or
I'll second.
Don't need a second.
We don't need to
You
say.
want to revise it?
Yeah, I want to revise that. Yeah, let's revise that.
Get ready.
Okay, so, all right, I moved that HLRB, let's see, grant conditional approval to the blade sign and facade sign proposed for 2010 20th Pike, pending DRC review and I think they don't DRC recommendations. Yeah, these were the DRC, so I guess DRC recommendations.
DRC review and recommendations.
Yes.
Approbation, the approval.
Oh,
Same thing.
can approve it though. So I guess recommendations, yeah, because the DRC can approve it. So. And I'll speed things up at least by.
Does everyone understand the new motion?
Okay, just Bob mentioned, is this a package deal? Is it, if we could approve conditionally or not even conditionally, just approve the vertical panel, guys get started on that. And if something goes wrong later, God forbid, then he'll have at least signage up for opening day.
Well, one of the suggestions was to, the food redefined, my understanding you put on there because DRC suggested it. So I presume if it's on the other one, I'm not sure about that. If you prefer to
I didn't
have,
hear any objections to that particular.
not on the vertical one, but I think it's up to him stylistically if he's wants to have it on, if he wants to take it off both.
I see.
Or there be any objection. When that, if we approve it with that on there, then they decide to take it off the other one, then the sign won't match, so to speak. It's a stylistic thing. Really up to the applicant.
If that's in our purview, can't we just conditionally approve anything within that existing signage change is appropriate? I mean, his building can do whatever he wants. He's not changing the actual sign, just.
We could approve it with or without food redesign.
I don't think we need to get into the weeds.
I think we can we approve sort of the vertical only? I mean, I guess we can.
Well, if you're offering conditional approval, I think it's for the package as presented through refinements that DRC is going to recommend. So I think it can be covered under the current motion, but you don't have a second for it.
The whole idea of giving conditional approval is to give DRC the authority to work with the owner to come up with something that we think, based on the architect's expertise on the DRC, will work for the building. So can't we just have a very general motion that gives conditional approval pending DRC's approval of the design?
That's what we have. Currently, yeah. We have right now. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's vote. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to call the roll. So if you support the motion, please say yes. Mr. Aiken?
Can you read the motion?
Of course.
Just one last time?
Yep.
Thank
I will
you.
read the
That's
new
a good
amendment.
idea.
Okay. I move that the HALRB grant conditional approval of the blade sign and facade sign proposed for 2910 Columbia Pike pending DRC review and recommendations.
Okay. Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Laporte?
Yes.
Ms. Lawrence?
Yes.
Mr. Medin?
Yes.
Ms. Meyer?
Yes.
Mr. Turnbull? Mr. Wenschel?
Yes.
And Mr. Woodruff?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Okay. Let's move on to 2408 Columbia Pike. I guess.
Lauren.
Yeah, okay.
Lauren, you ready for number 2?
Ready. We have another sign project that is being brought to the HLRB. So this is for 2408 Columbia Pike, which is COA 23-05. It's Columbia Pike form-based code project. And this is also identified in the Columbia Pike commercial form-based code as a historic facade, just like 2910 Columbia Pike. This building was constructed in 1951, and the building has been part of many conversations that we've had in front of the HLRB, many that have involved some big redevelopment opportunities. I don't know about what is happening with any of those. I wish I could answer those questions. I believe that ownership has changed, and so I don't think that the last redevelopment project that was presented to the HLRB back in 2020 is happening, but I'm not sure. But right now what we're looking at is a sign project for a business that's going in right next to Rappahannock Coffee. And they're proposing to, the business is called Thicker Clouds. They are going to put a horizontal sign that's 16 feet by 33 inches. They plan to install it above the building's canopy directly on the building. And it will consist of internally lighted channel letters along a raceway. It will have 5-inch deep aluminum channels with black returns. And the sign letters will be red and white acrylic covered by vinyl. There will also be LED lights on the side. And all of the hardware will be galvanized, and any penetrations that maybe are put into the wall or are not used will be sealed. So the DRC saw this project at its April 5th hybrid meeting, and they made a suggestion. What was presented to them, they made a suggestion that the sign be lifted up a bit higher. Some of the things that staff was concerned about, as well as some of the DRC members, was the placement of the sign. We want to try and keep it kind of consistent with the placement of the Rappahannock coffee sign right next door, as well as it almost looks like there is a different type of brick treatment happening on the historic facade, which is not the case. It's actually just paint. And as you know, we do not dictate color, but we do want to kind of keep that that green brick, or at least the different color of the brick to, I don't know why I differentiated, that's the same thing. They want to be able to see at least the top 1 or 2 lines right below the coping, so that the sign doesn't cover that up too much, because it's part of kind of the design element that we've got going on here. And then also the side signs that are LED, they were a really dark black, and it was suggested that that be softened a bit and maybe use like a dark gray. And those were most of the comments from the DRC. And staff recommendations, again, is to approve the subject application. We feel that the materials, the design, the way that the sign's going to be put up is all consistent with how a business on a historic facade would be able to put up its sign. We also feel that it follows standard number 10 of the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehab, which is that basically any alteration can be easily reversed. And so that is really the end of the staff report.
Mr. Kataria, is there anything you would like to add to Ms. Farris's presentation?
Not really. I mean, from the picture, you probably can't tell that the top of our sign matches the top of Rappahannock sign. That's what one of the recommendation was. So, and we changed it, and now it matches it. And then, of course, we softened the vape and smoke, the background of that, which was really dark, and now it's like a grayish shade. So made the changes as recommended. And this red, it looks super bright, but it's not like, in actuality, it's not as bright as it looks in the picture. So I don't know if that makes any difference. But that's about it.
Thank you. Out of curiosity, do we know what's proposing?
Oh, that is a piece of electrical equipment. I think it's on both. I think it's, Ms. Kataria, the electrical element that's on the facade right now, is that a light?
No, I think it's the one that exists right now, right? On top of the windows on the ceiling. So that, I think that's just an electrical outlet. I don't know if there's like a small box that's attached to it, but that's not part of our sign or anything.
Previous sign was lit, so it's probably the wiring.
Yeah, so it's not a light, no.
I have a question. Somebody mentioned that we don't do color. I think that's true when you're talking about the colors of buildings, but when you're talking about signs, we definitely have done color in the past. Okay, I remember on the, it's considered a part of the design of the sign. Color is part, I mean, I remember on the Buckingham signs, we talked about color, and on the shoe repair shop between the old post office and Lion Hall, we definitely, I mean, that was a huge controversy. So I don't think it's true that we don't do color, and I frankly think that the color, the reason why we designate, why we wanted this, this building was built in 1951, not an art modern building, okay? But people liked it so much because it tries to mimic the art modern. That's why we wanted to, and it seems to be this, want to keep the same look that we use to maintain, to keep this building on Columbia Pike. They need to work more to make the sign look like the Rappahannock coffee sign, rather than, it, right now, it just doesn't, to me, it doesn't fit in at all with his, what we call the historic characters. I don't think this is a historic district, as I recall. It's just part of a development, and we're treating it as a historic district because we like
It's a historic facade.
Historic facade, right? Because what we like the facade of the Rappahannock Coffee and this kind of, including the sign, and this doesn't really, in my judgment, go far enough in trying to replicate or advocate the Rappahannock coffees. It doesn't look like they hardly tried at all. Anyway, this is my opinion.
Your comments, questions from the group?
Go ahead. I'm a little confused. I remember someone said that the top is now the same as Rappahannock. Does that mean the color is the same or they've moved thicker clouds down?
They moved it down.
So if you see there at the top of
Placement.
the Rappahannock sign,
Okay.
it's the bottom of the yellow band. They moved that. So that the top of this sign also hits bottom of the yellow band at the top.
I see the Rappahannock one again.
Sorry, we don't have a shot with
Right. Sure. So it only extends to the second. That top 10. I still think it takes too much of it.
Yeah, I agree with that. It is very jarring. Perhaps, I mean, I really think color has to come into it. A more subdued color, perhaps a blue in the design element would certainly be helpful. And that could also be the background for the words as well. I don't think it's sensitive to the historic building. Side.
The previous image that was originally submitted, you said this was a good idea.
Yeah.
Curious, I want to see the dark.
And also,
Dick, do you think any comments, Dick?
No, I'm fine with it. Thank you.
This is Mr. Qatari. Can I add something?
Yes.
So I don't know if you have the image from the previous business that existed here. They had they had like a gray and red sign, I believe, if I'm not wrong. Again, like this, I know this red looks super bright, it looks super funky, but that's not how it's gonna pop up. And again, like I know last time I was told that the color was not being dictated, so we went with this color. We just went with a lighter version of the dark black that you guys or the DRC thought was too harsh. Am I wrong? Like I thought the colors were not part of the decision making for the sign for historic district.
Steph, speak on that.
I mean, typically in local historic districts, which this is not quite the same apple to an apple comparison. In local historic districts, color is not typically considered in terms of painting.
Right.
Color, like whether it's siding or the color of brick or the color of a roof. A few of our members this evening have referenced other decisions that have come before this body in terms of historic commercial properties and signage related to those. And color has been discussed as an element of the signage design. So it's a nuanced difference, but it has been discussed. And I believe what you're hearing this evening is that several of the commissioners feel that the colors used in the signage are part of the design elements, and that's why they're discussing color. Okay.
So the what I was saying earlier, I know I think Serena or Lauren, you're trying to get the image from the last time. The sign that existed here before was cabinet era. I don't know if you have that sign. I think we sent it to you last time, but cabinet era used to be here on 2408 Columbia Pike. And they had like a dark gray and then some red, if I'm not wrong. I don't have it in front of me. So it would be like that kind of a red to match it.
We're still trying to pull it up.
Sure.
Sorry. We're having technical delays tonight.
No problem. So I think, yeah, I mean, in this, like, I don't know if you see the red background of the era, that probably would be the red that we're going to use with the whites, and then the darker gray on the sides that we have shown.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
I recall seeing that as well. Now that I see the sign, I actually don't have the issues with the color, but I do see what others are saying about the character of it, but it's not a criteria you're supposed to get. I'm not sure I'm covered.
Any comments or questions for that? Good, Bob.
My only desire the letters. The letter. I think. First, the initial the cabinet one actually higher.
Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion? I'm wondering if we're talking about, so we're kind of looking at this sign, we're looking at the previous sign, they both had the same type of red, but this is a lot more red, and so it's a little bit louder than what had been previously approved. So I'm wondering if, because this is such a dominant color on this sign, if maybe we could make the suggestion for the applicant to maybe use a color that's a little bit more subdued, so that it isn't as vibrant, but it's still visible, because signage needs to be visible for businesses, for their customers to be able to see it. So I'm wondering if maybe we could have a suggestion of maybe something a bit more subdued, like a burgundy or something, and that way it might work better with the whole character of the building, as well as just existing signage next door, so that it isn't so bold. And I'm wondering if that might be a solution.
I think that would be a good solution.
I had suggested blue as in the design element, but maybe if the applicant wants something that's more eye-catching, then I think something in a very, very dark red would be.
I completely agree with that too. I think that would actually help a lot.
Maybe what we could suggest is similar to what we just did with the last application. Maybe it, again, maybe just goes to the DRC and it'd be a conditional COA where it is, based on kind of a final review by the DRC, and maybe the applicant can provide just a few different options somewhere where, if they're comfortable with the idea of it being more of like a burgundy red, or maybe it's going back to maybe just the blue, kind of with the flame or the cloud or the smoke, whatever you want to call it. Maybe it's that, and maybe the DRC can help work with the applicant on what might be a little bit more and sensitive to the design.
That sounds like a good idea. I'll put together a motion and we can kind of go from there. I guess so based on that. I move that HLRB grant conditional approval to facade sign for 2408 Columbia Pike, pending review recommendation of the DRC.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, please say yes if you support the motion. Mr. Aiken? Mr. Davis? Ms. Foster? Mr. Laporte?
Yes.
Ms. Lawrence? Mr. Medin?
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Meyer? Mr. Turnbull?
No.
Mr. Winchell?
Yes.
Mr. Woodruff?
Yes.
Can I ask a question now, I guess? Quick question.
Sure, go ahead.
It sounds like we got the conditional approval. I'm just gonna send them a few design changes, I guess, making it dark burgundy. Would that give us the final approval, or is there anything else we would have to do after this?
So the staff will coordinate with you tomorrow on next steps, but basically you need to come to the DRC next month and they will give the final blessing.
So that's on the first Wednesday, so it's 2 weeks today.
Okay. But then the only thing you guys are recommending is to change the red to dark burgundy, right? Would that suffice?
We said either dark burgundy or maybe another, if you were comfortable with another alternative. One of the members mentioned maybe going with a blue. So my suggestion is maybe if you're comfortable with that change, providing maybe two options to the DRC so they can react.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we're on to the preliminary hearing for COA for the Breezeland project.
All right. Let's get ready. Okay, so.
Stretch.
Yeah.
Before we start, I included this historic image and the photograph in the modern day behind it, so you can see.
I've seen that photo.
Yeah.
Ah, where'd you find that?
I dug deep.
Love it. Love it. Lauren, do you want to do the introduction?
Yes. All right. So I know that we have our applicants here in the room, in your room, not in my room. That'd be weird. But I just want to give just a brief overview from my staff report. I'm going to try and keep it short because I want to get the HALRB as much discussion time, as well as I know that Scott Matties is there to provide an overview of what the proposed design is. So as you know, this is the Breezeland property located at 400 North Manchester Street. This property was constructed in circa 1900 and it is located in the Bluemont Park neighborhood. The property became a local historic district in 2004, and it also has a county-held easement protecting the exterior that was recorded in 2018. There have been many things that have happened since the property has been an LHD in 2004, and there have been many things that have had to happen with it being a county-owned property to get to the point where we are. And so I hope everybody looked that over in my staff report. But I think a couple key things to know is that in 2017, there were some suggestions, I believe, from some community members in the neighborhood. I thought it was possibly from Habitat itself, but I'm not 100% sure, but suggesting the idea of Habitat for Humanity's Washington, D.C. and Northern Virginia. I'm just going to keep referencing them as Habitat, approached the county and proposed a rehabilitation and adaptive reuse of the farmhouse as a group home for residents with developmental disabilities. And then in February 2020, the county and Habitat reached a non-binding agreement for the project with a signed letter of intent. I'm going to continue referencing that as the LOI. The LOI was signed, and a lot of stuff has happened since February 2022, and so we had some delays. But the specific conditions of the LOI have to be met in order for the county to convey the property to Habitat. And I can give you kind of a summary of those, but one of them is there needs to be, in order for the process to kind of continue moving forward, leading to conveyance of the property to Habitat, the HALRB needs to provide a conditional COA and be comfortable with any changes that Habitat might be proposing to the historic farmhouse. And then eventually there needs to be a finalized COA, basically to the point before conveyed the property. So that's one reason, other than we want to make sure that any changes that might be being proposed to the historic farmhouse, obviously we want them to be done in good design, but it's specifically a requirement in order for Habitat to be able to receive conveyance. And so conversation's been happening since the fall of last year to kind of see how this might be able to work out. And so finally we're kind of where we are, but the proposed design concepts include restoring the exterior of the farmhouse, modernizing and renovating the home's interior, constructing two new historically compatible additions, and modifying some aspects of the grounds and landscaping. And so I would like to pause on describing many things with the proposal, but I do want to at least make sure that Scott, and as well as the members in the room, can introduce themselves. And I think, if anything, the design review committee, I do want to bring up that they have been trying to influence some of the design. They came to the March and the April DRC meetings. And they made some changes to it. And I'm sure Scott can kind of go into details on that. If, for the most part, staff does recommend that the project be approved for a conditional COA. We have many reasons where we feel that it meets many of the Secretary of Interior standards. I'm very glad that Dick contacted me and mentioned that there was something that I had in the staff report, which was a typo, and it's concerning our recommendation concerning the window replacements. The applicant is proposing to replace the wood windows with newer windows, but it's not technically an in-kind window replacement. And my recommendation is that they should have an in-kind replacement, wood windows for wood windows. So I don't want to really go much more into it, but I'm here throughout to answer any questions, and I'd like to have the project manager introduce themselves to the HLRB, but I understand that they're, yep, that makes sense. That's the order. So I'm going to stop talking and let the team describe their project.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me from where I'm sitting?
Yes.
Around the table. So hi, everyone. I'm Mike Spots. I'm the Director of Real Estate Development for Habitat for Humanity of DC and Northern Virginia. And really want to thank county staff in particular. This is a complex project that touches on many county agencies, and they've done an amazing job in making sure that everyone is pulling in the same direction to help move this project forward. So I really appreciate the county staff support and the board's consideration of this proposal today. Also want to acknowledge and thank Chris here, who's representing the Civic Association Boulevard Manor. They have been very supportive of the project, and we appreciate that support moving forward. I want to reserve most of the time for Scott to talk about bricks and sticks, so to speak. But I do want to talk a little bit about the project team and sort of the intended use of the property, because that guides and very much influences the design. First, I want to acknowledge our other team members that are either in the room or on the call. We have Kristen Burr from Homemade of National Capital Region. Homemade's a core partner in this project. They're going to be the construction lead. They're going to be doing the work. And what their overall mission is to help work with, through relationships in the builder sector, to create housing for those that have some of the highest barriers to housing in the region. So they've been a great partner throughout, and they'll be partnering with us on the construction of this project. And then I also want to talk a little bit LARSH of Greater Washington. I'm sure in the Q&A, they'll have an opportunity to introduce themselves as well to you. But LARSH provides housing for adults with intellectual disabilities. They live, they're referred to as core members, and the core members live in homes with LARSH staff who really, they live as a family. And the family, it's like having another, just like any other neighbor in your neighborhood. They work to engage with the community, engage with the neighbor as you would with your own neighbors. And I've had the pleasure of visiting one of their homes, existing homes in Arlington along Columbia Pike. And it's really an inspiring model of housing for for individuals and persons with disabilities. So that guided a lot of the design elements that have gone into how we blend the how we blend the historic, how we service this bridge between the history of the property with what its future is going to be, and how we can create an opportunity for new neighbors and to meet a very critical housing need in Arlington County. So without further ado, I'd like to also introduce Scott Matties. He has been our amazing architect for this project, and I'll quit rambling so that he can talk about what you all are most interested in, which is the historic design of the property.
Thank you.
Is
that okay? Am I on?
Yes.
Yes. And then your presentation should be keyed up, so you just.
Thank you very much.
Like hiding in the corner over there. This is the moment.
Hiding from you.
Uh,
Thank you. Thanks for your time tonight. I'm Scott Matties with Winsec and Associates Architects. And we're small, district-based, but small architecture design firm. I'm an Arlingtonian as well, only for 28 years, so just still a newbie. That again. But I've been attached to this since before the pandemic, and it's been a real pleasure for me. So I'm going to go relatively quickly. I hope you've had a chance to look through the presentation in the staff report. Always happy to circle back and answer questions. I'm going to skip over a lot of the summary historic stuff and kind of get to the proposal, so in the interest of time. But just to point out on this slide, there is a URD on the property, and you can see the sort of the cross-hatched area to the rear was the area allocated for a potential addition. We're taking every inch of that in our proposal. Third program, in third large program, that we need every inch of that. So that I just want to highlight that. This is straight out of the Milner report. It designates the historic evolution of the property. The downside is I have to remind myself when you're not sitting at your computer and it's projected, sometimes the colors don't come out. So this is looking at all the historic interiors with kind of color coded to the same historic evolution. I'm going to skip through this. Our site plan. So a couple things. Here's the existing farmhouse. The addition we're proposing again is to the rear of that, and as I mentioned, we're taking every inch allowed in the URD. We did add a couple of these green rectangles just as a kind of a placeholder as we begin to develop site design with the civil engineer that will be on board, looking at opportunities where we may need some stormwater management opportunities on site. These would be very low scale, not structures per se, but part of the landscape. So here's the primary proposal. On the left is the existing, right is the proposed, and we've kind of grayed out the right on the right for distinction. We're proposing, I've always thought of it as one addition, and I guess you can think of it as two additions interconnected. A two-story addition here that comes directly off the back of what is the oldest portion, what's known as the Torreyson tenant house. Straight back, and that's 2 stories. For a portion of it, sloping down to this primary 1-story addition. I guess that heads east, and it kind of helps create an arrival court. This is generally the location of the existing paved area. We are proposing to modify that somewhat in order to provide a couple additional parking spaces that the large program function properly. But it's a small 2-story addition in a bit larger 1-story addition. We have, so this gives you the ground again, existing and the proposed. The shape of this addition here as it comes off the rear, we really kind of actually like the proportion of this. It's asymmetric. It's got this kind of carve out where that existing porch is. That covered porch, we're essentially extruding that back, and in the detail of the siding that we're proposing, we want to give some deference to that historic porch. And give it, just a kind of a ghosted image of that, so to speak. So you're seeing the two-story addition here. This is the existing, what was at one time an open porch, became a kind of a closed-in porch at some point. Not conditioned space currently, but plan is to convert that to conditioned uses. So that's from the neighborhood side. The community garden is sort of. This is from the drive aisle up. This again is sort of the motor court that exists, the parking pad, front porch. Here's our one-story addition. It's a bit higher, the eave line, so there is a bit of a distinction there. We think it's positive. We've added some dormers to that. A one-story addition to give it a little bit more texture to it, so more visual interest. There is a proposed shed dormer on the existing farmhouse. I'll show you that on the interior. But what we're planning to do is take the existing stair hall that's about right here and create a more open two-story stair hall, and then extend that up to the third floor, really the attic, the current attic, that will be used for purely administrative functions, not for residents. But we need a little bit of headroom there at the top of the stair to get that. We have this roof shape here on the addition, kind of follows the pattern that exists on this facade with a closed pediment here. And then talked about 3 ramp options with the DRC. So we need a ramp. We need handicap accessibility. Handicap accessibility is a very important component of the program to serve the residents. We are proposing an elevator here that connects floor 1 and 2. This is in the addition, so the back wall of the existing is here. So this is really the only position that works for an elevator, and that's in large measure why we have the 2-story addition to the rear. Because of the nature of headroom, et cetera, that's really the only place it works. It really doesn't work anywhere within the footprint of the existing. But we need an accessible entrance from grade. So we looked at 3 ramp options. The first ramp option is this, as you can see, this U-shape. And the rationale there is that we were looking for a solution that maintained the 3 existing stairs down to grade that exist, undisturbed or stored. The ramp comes in at the sort of the center line of one of the bays, the structural bays, so to speak, of the porch. We are proposing in all these scenarios to add railings that don't exist today, and that's in part not necessarily so much for a straight code requirement because of the height of the porch, but really for the safety of residents. Many of them are either using walkers or wheelchairs, and booling off even a 12-inch rise is a problem. This is a really important safety feature for residents. So that was the first option. Feedback we got, some positive, some negative feedback from the DRC. We looked at a second option, and this I'll say is the favorite option for the large program, is to have an L-shaped ramp that provides the most direct access. I'm not going to zoom in because I might mess it up, but if you can see this key plan below, this is the most convenient access from the handicap parking to the ramp and therefore to the front porch. This is the one that's favored by L'Arche. We got some feedback from the DRC. One downside of this is that we feel like we need to close off this existing stair down, just because it conflicts that and replace that with rail. At the last DRC, it was suggested to look at this option, which is a straight run ramp along the edge of the house. You can see here, hopefully in massing. Which is sort of minimized in terms of its relationship to the porch, but I think looking at it operationally, it seems a bit more problematic in that it's the furthest of these solutions. It's the furthest from the handicap parking. It provides, the longest path for a resident to get from a parking space, or just down to grade. It doesn't have to be to and from a parking space. Getting from the porch down in a handicapped accessible method. It seems to be the longest run and therefore the least favored. It also does require kind of extending to get a landing at the top and a platform. So that stair that exists here now today would have to. Those were the three options we looked at and discussed. The interior, just to highlight this very briefly, just to give you a sense of what's going on. So there will be interior renovation in the existing farmhouse, and it'll be, as Mike had mentioned, it's a big single family home for a family. Different kind of a family, but it's a family nonetheless. So that's kitchen, dining room, living room, social rooms in the existing. The ground floor, the rear addition is a bedroom. There are 5 bedrooms and 2 big handicap accessible bathrooms. On the second floor, and here's that stair hall that we're creating, a more open, connective stair hall that goes all the way up. Here's the second floor of the addition, the elevator coming up to a landing. There's a couple multi-purpose kinds of rooms up here and 1 bedroom here to the rear. And then in the attic of the 1-story addition is anybody who lives in a house or an apartment knows that storage is important. So we're providing as much as we can. And then lastly, here's where it terminates at the top in the attic. This dashed line, if you can see it, is where that dormer is proposed. And it's at the top of the stair, and you just run out of headroom with that. As was mentioned, this is only administrative functions for large staff. It's not for residents. So this series, if you were able to kind of read through all this, and Lauren's report highlights some of this as well, is the beginning of a restoration plan in terms of materiality and what our approach will be. In very high level summary, again, it's restore the exterior of the existing farmhouse. There's aluminum siding on it. We're going to take it off and see what we got. We don't know for sure what we've got, condition of it, but the plan will be to restore it. If that means remove a bunch of rotted material and replace it in kind with wood siding of the same profile, that's what our plan is. We just don't know how much that will be. The windows, part of the rationale for window replacement is that historic windows, operationally, they're often a problem. They're hard to operate, and they're not energy efficient. For both reasons, we feel like long-term maintenance and for the ability to use them, we want to replace the existing. We had proposed aluminum-clad wood windows, in large measure, again, for a long-term maintenance issue. They will not need to be painted over time. Those would need to be painted over time. Potentially proposes or presents a maintenance issue for operations over time. The addition will be siding. It'll be neo-traditional in character, but it will be of modern material, fiber cement siding and trim. The same kind of windows. Those would certainly be aluminum-clad wood windows, not straight wood windows. If we go that way on the restoration. Asphalt shingle, dimensional asphalt shingle roofing throughout. I don't know if there's much more of a highlight. There's probably more time than I was allotted anyway, so I just open it up for questions. I'm sure that. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yep.
I signed up to speak.
Okay.
Sorry. I hope everybody can hear me too. Good evening. My name is Chris Teig, and I was the president of Boulevard Manor Civic Association. Where the farmhouse is located, from 2017 to 2021. I'm currently a board member. In April of 2017, I specifically raised this idea to now County Board Chairman Christian Dorsey after the county stated they would examine selling the property. Within days, myself, Habitat, and Chairman Dorsey held a brainstorming session about around ideas. After pretty much 6 years to date, you have the final draft. Since 2017, we engaged heavily with BMCA residents. I am proud to say that I've yet to hear of any logical, rational reason why this project should not happen. You have an opportunity to make history tonight. You have a distinct honor of creating a gold standard process of how community, free nonprofits, developers work hand in hand to adaptively reuse historical structures while still maintaining history, sense of community, using no taxpayer funds, and most importantly, providing livable spaces for the least among us. This project truly is missing the least among us housing. Envisioning such great examples as Trenton, New Jersey's Roebling Lofts, Michigan's Central Station, my personal favorite, Storm King Art Center in Cornwall, New York, we together can create something unique, something special, make Arlington history, and polish up the gem of our community. We have an all-star leadership team that I'm humbled and honored to be a part of. The MCA, Larch, Habitat, and Homemade. We meet at least once every other week to work to resolve issues, plan, coordinate comms, and bring in others as needed. We are hand to hand in this together. We're fully committed to the success of this project. Look forward to bringing this to fruition. Thanks so much for your time.
Mike, did you want to introduce anyone else?
So I just want to, I'm sure you'll have questions from them, and hopefully they'll have an opportunity to talk more. But Luke and Sarah from L'Arche, if you want to just, if there's anything about what I said in the intro about L'Arche that I left out that you would like to raise now.
We love being part of Arlington as a community, and it's a real gift to be able to consider that this is an affirmation of people of intellectual disability in our community. We're doing this because of the county saying it. So when I told people it was a birthday party this evening, people couldn't be there. But, well, you need to go and do this. This is going to enable more people to celebrate more birthdays in our community.
I work kind of on the side where communications and development, and we get so many calls of people specifically in Arlington wanting a home for their loved one. There is such a need for more housing facilities, and this will only be a drop in the bucket of that need, but it's a really important one, and we're really excited and so humbled to be a part of this team as well. It's just really neat to see nonprofits working with each other, for each other, in the community right alongside us. And really excited to be.
That's before the board. Any comments, questions?
Quick question, the roof, which is metal.
Existing now?
Yeah.
There's a little bit, this little porch is metal. It's a red metal, and then an image of it, but there, if you remember, there's this little dormer on the existing picture here. That little shed dormer on that wing is
Standing seam.
it's either standing or a flat seam. It's definitely a seam.
Not shingles.
I'll say something. I've been involved, not with the current project, but with this project.
You and me both.
Maybe before Cynthia was here, I don't know. But I can't tell you how many hours I've personally spent active in a previous nonprofit that tried to read. But I couldn't imagine a happier outcome than what it was. May happen. And I've been a admirer of L'Arche from since the 1960s. And I first heard Jean Bonnier speak up in Ottawa, Ontario, back in the maybe early 1970s. You guys do great work. You have present community already, and very grateful that quite people understand that presence project. And this may be a bit iconoclastic, and I don't think it's going to set a precedent, but I'm fine with you. Window, in the historic park. Good aluminum clad windows, you can't tell the difference between aluminum clad and wood windows. I think it's going to help you with maintenance and help this project along. I think that I would vote in favor of that. Maybe anathema to, because I know that we've had these discussions before. That is past, at least it's been definitely a minority challenge.
I think in terms of the addition and the massing, I think it's gonna work. There obviously, what you have to do inside drives to a large extent how big the addition has to be, and you're dealing with people who have specific needs for equipment, and skimp on space. But I think you've done it in a very, very
Yeah, I would just say we have been looking for an answer to this for 20 years. This is a very sensitively done, excellent use of the property. I think better than the prospect of single family. I do have a question for our staff. When we partition the property, make it available for sale. There's that other outbuilding. I forget what it used to be.
The milk shed.
Milk shed. I was just saying the dairy. It's not. What is the structural condition of that building? Because that was, I seem to recall, a slight question when that came up before, and this was so many people living there who might be vulnerable. Just don't want that to be a safety issue.
That's a great question. So that is part of the local historic district boundary. It is not part of the parcel that is going to be conveyed. That outbuilding will still be county owned. Condition assessment probably still is questionable. So that is something that I think our staff would need to further coordinate with not only Department of Parks and Rec staff, but also with county leadership to kind of determine next steps for the milk shed. But that is not part of the current.
Right, I was just more being aware there's a lot of residents nearby, not knowing what.
But you raise an excellent point, Mark. Yeah.
That's a good point. It's currently fenced off. So it is inaccessible to any residents current that are there now. That there's a lot of foot traffic through the site right now as it is. So at present, it is currently fenced off, and we can't speak to the existing structural condition.
Nick has his hand raised. It's
Okay. Sorry. Nick, go ahead.
Did you call on me, Omari?
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, I'll just reiterate the comments of some of my colleagues. The county has worked for a long time to find an appropriate use for this historic building. And this looks like a really, really commendable solution. And I want to compliment Habitat and Homemade and the other sponsors for putting together such a really good project, and a really worthy project, and it'll be put to a really good use. I do want to say something about the windows, though. Properly painted, good quality wooden windows last as long and are as maintenance-free as aluminum clad windows. And if we're going to hold homeowners in Arlington historic districts to the Secretary's standards that require replacement with wooden windows, I think we need to be consistent on this project. I don't see any reason why we would want to allow aluminum clad windows in this historic building. The addition is one thing, but the historic building, sight lines, dimensions, lights, all of those specifications need to be maintained. And so, I think that's something we need to hold you to, wooden windows. Sorry. Thank you. But having said that, fantastic project and commend you greatly for putting it together.
option heard by the, I really thought about keeping the staircase on sort of like the south side there, so like getting that, or like keeping part of that potentially, or all of it.
Sure, I mean, I think when we talked at DRC, it was still there. We talked about the conflict of using it with that leg of the ramp kind of obstructing it. We took it out and put a rail there. I think it's problematic to leave the stairs there at all. Could be a little area to sit down, tie your shoes or something like that, and that's fine. I don't think we have any problem.
And end user perspective, we're okay.
I think that would be a good solution.
Yeah, I think when on the ramp issue, I think sort of given our discussion previously, sort of seeing everything out, I mean, I think my personal preference would be for this option here. Any comments, questions from the group? So this will be sort of the preliminary for our first COA essentially. So they'll be coming back to us at a later date with additional updates and everything else. So this will be sort of a round one, but I want to sort of echo everybody else and say that this sort of first pass, initial pass is a really, really great project. And I think we're all excited about it. Happy to see it before the board here. So with that, I'll make a motion. So I move the HLRB approved conditional COA for Riesland LHD at 400 North Manchester Street, pursuant to their return for a full COA approval when their plans are further established.
Second that.
Dick, go ahead. Dick, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I'd just like to have some understanding about some of the views of the other members of the board on the window issue before we go to a vote.
Echo what you said. I think we pushed windows in terms of replacement. Wood windows. Insulated, glazing, are superior to anything that does historic windows, maintain close appearance. There are wood window replacements that isn't training have several different people, not cheap, and last quite a while. It depends on what wood species. I don't think there are paint coatings that work a lot better than oil-based paints. I think trouble. People know that. Did it for a long time for parks. Story. There are major problems in terms of moisture. Trapping moisture within the blistering. So I think this comment, we went through this a lot. Lakewood Historic District in terms of what we're looking for, and I think we followed Alexandria's lead in saying that we would get away from requiring rehab of existing wood windows failing single pane non-insulated glazing. So I think with replacement windows work really well. Is that enough, Dick?
I can just make a general comment, and this does apply to the window conversation, but it's, I know this conditional, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of the material discussions will not occur today, or the decisions will not occur today. It'll be during, when we proceed towards final COA and come back perhaps a few times, most likely, as we get through different phases of design. But one of the things that I just want to offer as a consideration as you're thinking and contemplating what the requirements might be in terms of materiality is the cost is, I understand what you're saying regarding sort of requiring it of private homes as well as this, but the one difference in that is a private home that makes an investment in their property can recoup that investment through appreciation of the value of that home. This is going to be a permanent home. So we want to, in that there's not going to be sort of any sort of economic opportunity to capture that appreciation over time. This is going to be permanent. It'll be permanently affordable. And so that we have to look at, as we think about cost differentials, just globally speaking, we have to think about the long-term cost of operating and replacement. Now, obviously, we want to focus on quality and durability within the context of this historic design. The second element, as it pertains to materials, is availability and the availability of the product and availability of the contractors that are able to install in a timely manner. So if this is a private home, you have, say, a branch falls through a window or through a roof. You can, it's a hassle for any family, but you can move into another part of the house. You can potentially stay in an extended stay hotel for a period of time while you work through the process and getting it rebuilt. That is less of an option given the programming and the use of the property and who's going to be living there and some of the accessibility challenges that those households face. So the ability to, in the event that this comment's less about sort of routine maintenance that you can plan for and plan ahead, but for that unexpected maintenance that will occur in any property. If there is something that you might not be able to get a replacement, you add maybe 4 months or 3-4 weeks, 3-4 months, whatever your time period is, to get a replacement installed, sourced and installed, that can create a material hardship. So, we obviously can do our research on which materials that might apply to and which it does not. That's not going to be germane for every material choice. But I just want to put that consideration out there as we're thinking about this, that, to the extent that we definitely want to, like I said, serve as that bridge between the past and the future and honor the historic choice. But I just wanted to offer those considerations for the long-term stewardship of the property.
Thank you for bringing up both those points. And I think I'd be inclined to still hold any property accountable to what resident doing, especially we've spent so much time discussing windows. However, the second point about the unique program and nature of this house, and I realize that modern wood windows are incredibly operable and they have that longevity, but they're also heavier because you do have a unique occupant situation that this has to also be accessible. And I think to me that would be enough of a condition that would make this exempt. Well, we should still hold all residents.
I agree with what Alexander was saying about the accessibility issue for it is given the uniqueness of it, and I think that's actually really on this is that I do believe like we're saying in this case you would want to keep that consistency across all projects given the uniqueness of it.
Mark, you're taking the windows.
I think considering the unique use, it's appropriate to be open to a different option. Secondly, considering the difficult history we've had, them taking possession and utilizing this property will guarantee its saving. Which is the whole reason we purchased Reefland and been really unable to find someone to take it on. That also begins into my viewing of.
Bob, window take.
Oh, Jerry.
And could be persuaded either way. I think to Dick's point that it is valid if we're holding homeowners to the wood window replacement, but it should also be considered for this property. But given the use, understand that argument as well. I would be interested when materials start to be selected to see product sheets of what a wood window would be or what the metal clad window would be.
I think I would agree with you on that too. I think I'd be interested to see sort of for the options there essentially. I mean, sort of like what are the real actual sort of specs and options and like what's the, you know, the lift weights and different things. So I'd like to be explored at least. I mean, I'm not really sort of rigid one or the other, but given that we have really spent a lot of time on windows, historically on the board, it would like to, it should be addressed or at least explored. That's my opinion.
I also think, given that we are looking at an addition and that is primarily where the bedrooms are, I wouldn't be opposed to the addition being aluminum clad and the historic original building being with windows, just as another option.
I think that's.
Having lived with 1909 windows for a couple of decades or more, if when you keep them in good repair, they work just fine. And I finally found a company that does that, and they're now. I don't think it's come out yet, but there's a spray material that is I've seen written up that you're supposed to be able to spray on old windows that gives you the same energy efficiency as double glazing. I think there are options for working with the windows, and I think maybe a hybrid to the historic building as opposed to the. You know,
Do you want to take a vote on how everyone feels about the ramp options, the formal kind of direction for the applicant?
That's a good. So let's kind of like go around on different ramp options as well. So my take on the ramp option, I'm sort of with option 2 there. It's kind of my take, Joan.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think adding or not deleting the entirety of the stairs would be a good thing.
Agreed with you on option 2 as well.
Andy?
I think option 2 is good.
Alex?
2, and like Joan, I think leaving some of the steps.
Bob? 2. Yeah. No.
Okay.
Great. All
Want
right.
to make sure? You guys give us your name?
Oh, sorry. Dick? What's your view on the ramp options?
I'm not sure which one was option 2, but I'm fine with what the applicant had suggested was the best option. Was that number 2?
Yes, that's number 2. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Unanimous. Big into at all, or?
Can't we read back the motion?
I can read back the motion.
See if you want to.
Include any of it. I move that the HALRB approves a conditional TOA for Reedland LHD at 400 North Manchester pursuant to their return for a full TOA approval when their plans are further.
With that, I mean, do we take it as sort of process itself? We'll see different things.
Here's me, we'll see this again before it comes back to the full board.
With that, I'm happy.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that this motion does not give tacit approval to the window proposal.
You want to propose an amendment?
Sure. I'll just say that provided that the issue of aluminum clad windows will be left open to be determined by the board in the future.
You need a second.
Second.
Thank you.
Lauren, go ahead.
I just want to confirm, Serena, because I want to make sure that we show our other colleagues that need to see that a conditional COA has been approved. Serena, can we do something to the plans where we kind of X out at least maybe cross out the window description to just kind of reflect that as well? Or do you think that's not necessary?
No, I can add a note, and I usually do that, so I'll drop a note on any pages that have a reference. And
Great, thank you.
And also deferring on that issue for further discussion will not hold up any, what's hold up any of the timeline in terms of our due diligence and planning. That's something that can be decided later. Right now, what's really critical is knowing that we have to go ahead to move forward with massing and the general plan, so a general concept, so that we can start getting the structural engineer, the civil engineer to do the heavy analysis. So the windows is that, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott.
Nope, I agree.
I agree. Defer, we can talk about that later.
Yes.
Okay, so Andy, just confirming you seconded, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any other
Here,
discussion on that?
discussion, no further discussion, let's.
All right,
Call the
let's
roll.
do this. If you support, please say yes. Mr. Aiken. Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Ms. Foster.
Yes.
Mr. Laporte.
Yes.
Ms. Lawrence.
Yes.
Mr. Medin.
Yes.
Ms. Meyer.
Yes.
Mr. Turnbull.
Yes.
Mr. Winchell.
Yes.
Mr. Woodruff. That's unanimous, and if staff could vote, we would too, but we can't. So we will see you here.
Thank you very much. We
Have
appreciate
fun.
feedback from the design review committee.
Yeah.
It was really helpful to get all of your perspectives in the lead up. This has been a great process, so thank you.
We love the budget.
Item. Next one is district at 202 North Stafford Street.
Thank you so much. And thank you for waiting for the McIntyre. I really appreciate your time. So I'm very excited to present 2002 North Stafford Street, Local Historic District application consideration. Mr. and Mrs. McIntyre joined us. This is a consent application. This is a single parcel local historic district, and the zoning overlay would affect only the property at 2002 North Stafford Street. The property is in Cherrydale near the Waverly Hills border and is contributing to the Cherrydale National Register District. It is a circa 1920 freestanding single-family craftsman-style bungalow with a lot of architectural integrity. The National Register nomination notes its hipped dormer and brick porch columns. The Cherrydale National Register District was designated for its association with community development and architecture of the turn of the 20th century, including the development of residential suburban neighborhoods and its craftsman colonial revival and Tudor revival homes. So located on the 1900 Erasmus tract, as you can see, this property is close to one of the main 1900 county thoroughfares. So it would have been in an area that got a lot of movement and would have been very attractive. The 1932 Sanborn Fire Insurance map shows that this was one of Arlington's earliest developed neighborhoods, with many parcels already developed, while other neighborhoods were still fairly sparsely inhabited and used as farmland. So this is just a rough timeline. I've not done any research. I'm just presenting to you a little bit of information and then the application information from the applicants. So the goal would be for you to analyze whether or not you feel like this property should be added to our research roster. And then I would move forward, do the research, and then present that to you at a later date with a designation report and design guidelines and what I would have worked on with the applicant. So circa 1900, Erasmus D. Preston owns the 16 acres here. First generation Irish immigrant buys 3 empty lots. He is a carpenter and he builds it himself, probably in 2 stages around 1920 and 1925. He and his family live here for the duration of his life, and he got through 2 wives. So the duration of 2 wives. Circa 1961, Mary and Dewey Smith buy the home from the Brennans. And then 1972, the home is updated with a 1-story addition and renovation. There are a few other updates along the way, but it's extremely integral. And in 1984, Joan and Thomas McIntyre purchased the home and have been fabulous stewards for this property since then. So this is the east facade. It faces onto a quiet residential street and is across the street from a large Catholic diocese school and location. So you can see the brick porch columns. It currently has aluminium siding, but used to have shingles underneath, which I believe are still underneath. And that's
Vinyl siding.
oh, it's vinyl siding. Sorry, I got the note wrong. Apologies. But I will also invite you to tell us everything you would like to once I've just gotten through the lovely photos. So they let me come by on a beautiful sunny day and take photos of the property. This is the rear, the side elevation. And so as you can see, there are very minor additions. Largely the house has remained as it was. Just here are a few of the details. So this is the, I believe you said it was a Ford car rut? Yeah, the Model T ruts in the, leading to what used to be a garage, which is on the Sanborn Fire Insurance map. And so I just wanted to mention that this is representative of a typical popular residential style in Arlington in the 1920s. It only had 3 owners. It's largely integral. And we currently only have one other residential local historic district in the Cherrydale National Register District. And we have otherwise one other in the neighborhood, which is the Cherrydale Volunteer Firehouse. But otherwise, there are no other protected properties in the Cherrydale National Register District in this entire area. And there's a lot of development because it's a very attractive area, as we said, very close to a number of major roads, but not on any of them. So it's a very quiet residential area. The McIntyres also shared some history with me that it may be connected to possibly the land was used for a hospital during the Civil War and some other historic facts that I haven't been able to substantiate yet, but I'm only at the beginning of my journey into the history. And so, Mr. and Mrs. McIntyre, would you like to talk to us about your stewardship of the home and what you appreciate about the home?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've lived here almost 40 years and really appreciate the kind of historic nature of it, the early 20th century. We've really worked, we've done renovations and interior. We haven't done much to the exterior, but to actually keep the historic nature of it. It's got the original wood floors. It's got the original plaster walls. It's got a lot of interesting wood design, rails and things like that. And we've still got the original the tin ceiling in the kitchen. Actually hated to do it, but we did have to get rid of the tin roof at some point. It just kept springing too many leaks. But so that was, and then we took out the bathtub at home. It was too hard to renovate, but it's still in my backyard. And reusing that. So, like to make sure that this house, actually, I'm really hoping that some of the other neighbors that are nearby, we've got a cluster of houses that are about the same age. There does seem to be a little bit of interest among the neighbors of considering historic designation. Spread within the neighborhoods. Preserve some of this kind of cluster of architecture.
It's a beautiful neighborhood to visit. I highly recommend it. It really feels, when you drive through it and walk around it, it's extremely pedestrian friendly and gives you the scale that is what we are used to in Arlington, and really reminds you of the era in which Arlington began to develop as a residential neighborhood and why it was so attractive to so many people in Washington, D.C.
I think that probably one of the more unusual aspects of this house is it's a century old. It's only had 3 owners. People tend to move in and like it. What's also interesting about the house is adjacent to it is that 4 or 5, maybe 6 of our neighbors have lived there nearly as long as we have, nearly 40 years, or some in some cases longer. So this is I think that's pretty unique in a world where when we bought the house, the real estate agent said, oh, well, every 7 years. Can you show the slide with the north side again? We're seeing a little bit of it, but yeah, you see all that green slime back there? I spent most of last weekend scrubbing that off, but if anybody has a tip as to how to keep that from coming back, I'd very appreciated. That is fine. We had to replace the aluminum siding about 15, 20 years ago. It was aluminum. It's the original siding are cedar shakes, which are still there. The last owners had it covered with aluminum siding, which then that doesn't hold up all that well.
I think the cedar shingles were pretty thick, but we didn't.
Unfortunately, north sides often suffer from this kind of lichen problem, and so unless we tilt the earth slightly different.
Or chop down all the adjacent.
It's really not you, yes. I would also note, as you mentioned about the neighbors, we as a program are trying to delve more into cultural history. And so the learning more about Mr. Brennan and his roots as a recent immigrant to this country, and then his work as a carpenter and the working class roots of a lot of early Arlington, I think is going to be a really valuable addition to the narrative that we're building.
There's clear evidence that the original owner built it himself, because we have one or two closets where there's sort of fancy molding on the inside of the closet. He just had leftover, whatever he had left over from the site. And then the ceilings we have one ceiling that's quite unusual, which is very, very heavily done swirl pattern, but nothing like you could find it. But it is too expensive.
Is that the plaster?
Yeah, it's the original.
So he left his mark.
No, it really is a little bit unique.
Kind of fair thing, but.
Unfortunately, after 3 different roofers.
I have to check to see what the original roof material was. I should,
Is that an open circle? It's a little small for me.
It was 10, we could probably dig out, we may have some pictures. Back at that.
I'm sure we do somewhere. Yeah, it was galvanized steel, the old stuff, but
yes.
the underlayments that they used in those days. So eventually it just.
As you can see, this 1932 map, it indicates it's a wood frame house with a fire resistant roof, so tin makes sense.
There's the outbuilding.
Yes, and there's the little garage that you still have the ruts to, but the structure's not stuff. Are there any questions from the commission?
I think it's great that you want to have it designated and preserve it. There's just, every time I drive down another street in Cherrydale, there's just another house that's torn down.
So you can see the house on the left. An older house.
Yeah.
Of course, the house on the
Yeah.
other. Isn't the same. I think it's a little older than.
The one on the left looks very much like one of they were where I live.
There's one house in our area.
I think you're.
Yeah, I just want to commend the McIntyres for doing this. It's so great, with all the tear downs in Cherrydale that you're, coming forward to protect this house. I'm a homeowner in Maywood, and I know the advantages of having an historic district or a group of houses. And if you need any assistance in trying to persuade your neighbors of the advantages of making that an historic house, and I'm happy to volunteer and make the case on how it's benefited Maywood, where we've had almost no tear downs at all in the last 20 years. I think maybe 1 or 2. And it's been because they have this historic preservation protection. So, you know, if there's a way I can help you persuade your neighbors, please call on me.
I think
Two of our neighbors are on the Zoom part of this meeting, at least tonight.
That's great. That's great. And again, thank you for doing this.
Your comments, questions? Hearing none, we'll move the motion, so. So I moved at HLRB, add the parcel at 2002 North Stafford Street, Historic Preservation Program staff, queue for research for consideration as a local historic district.
I'll second that.
That's call the roll.
All right, support yes. Let me know. Mr. Egan?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes, yes.
Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Laporte?
Yes.
Ms. Lawrence?
Yes.
Mr. Medin?
Yes.
Ms. Meyer?
Yes.
Mr. Turnbull?
Yes.
Mr. Winchell?
Yes.
And Mr. Woodruff?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Congratulations very much.
Thank you.
We look forward to working with you and thanks for your patience tonight.
Okay, our next item is the marker review of the Evelyn Reed Cypex marker.
Yes, and so I have, oh, wait, I'm going the wrong way. Sorry. I have a full size here, so you can see what it's going to look like when it's printed. The colors aren't quite right because that's what printers do, they lie. But it's going to be a 2x3. And I reduced the text with Jerry and Carmela. I'm still working on developing possibly a 3-part section, but I wanted to get this version to you so you can review it. Jerry had some very important recommendations about really making it shorter, punchier, and more available for people to understand. I have a few, I don't have copies for everyone, but just in case someone wants a closer copy, I have a few. And he also recommended some edits to the images to balance out the representation that we were providing, because he was right, it was a bit lopsided. And then adding important information, her birth and death date, clearing up certain references, returning information about her education, and yes, just generally making it more accessible and more legible. Very great. I think you all know, because I mentioned this before, this comes with the support of, it was proposed by one of our sisters at the Alpha Kappa sorority, and it still comes with her support. And I worked with her sons, Craig and Archie Cypex, Doug Cypex, on this.
Stay on the call.
I know. Okay.
I looked at the final version just before this afternoon, and I still have some edits. I think it has to do with, and I don't know if it, I don't want to go through.
We can. I can. If unless there's something.
No, I mean, I think they're all just kind of stylistic, and you know, some things we added it and put it back in, and now it's duplicated into different places. And the one extra thing, I don't really know. You talk about the Hoffman Boston School, and you say that's in Penrose. I think of that in Arlington. It's not.
Okay. We can confirm that.
That's a factual thing that didn't come up before.
Okay.
Other people may be more familiar with that neighborhood and think that even though technically it's not in Penrose, everybody calls it Penrose, so this is okay. I just don't know that much about the neighborhoods.
No, you're right. And I will check. I just wanted to give it a little bit of context since it's going to be nearby. And I wanted people to think, oh, I'm here. I'm standing, you know, by the APS building that the Hoffman Boston School. But yes, I will confirm.
I don't know if you want me to. I can send these things to you. I can read them time. I don't want to go through and bore people with.
Oh, I mean, I definitely want to hear if it's something that you think would means that it needs to be reviewed another month.
Yeah, one of the things that I think I had, suggestion I had made and that you didn't accept, talked about Freedman's Village as being a community of emancipated now. They weren't emancipated when it started. Because the emancipation population didn't come until later. I had made that, you didn't accept that, but I don't think you realized that was me. Action. They were freed slaves, but they weren't emancipated.
Okay.
Because emancipation, I think, is a technical term, something that happened as a result of, like DC just celebrated its Emancipation Day because of the law that was passed.
Right, so you're thinking more capital E emancipation than just emancipation, meaning the definition of free.
Yes, they're not synonyms.
Okay.
I don't think in American history we use this.
Okay,
So,
I see.
So what I'd like to suggest, maybe if you could give us a copy of your edits like we've worked on in the past, and then as we're working to finalize, if we have further questions, Jerry, we can contact you directly. If that's okay. I don't know if other members had other editorial comments or design comments they wanted to express.
I think the layout has been. I didn't catch the emancipation or Penrose part of it, but I wouldn't have, there aren't any other changes though.
Anyone else?
And if you catch anything or after this, you can also send it to me because we won't edit it for a while. So if you want to, if you happen to be looking at it for the first time right now, because maybe you don't open my emails as soon as I send them things on Wednesdays because you're so excited, then I would understand if you wanted to.
One thing I would add is the justification on some of the text gets a little bit squishy, kind of wonky, and so that's a
So
little.
I try to, if you don't like justify it, it like all leans over to one side and looks bad. But then when you do, it does this bizarro spacing thing.
Yeah.
And so then sometimes I have to go back through and change it like, but yes, I will, now that you're like, now that I have it full size, I'm gonna make it not seem like I forgot to put spaces in between.
Yeah, that was,
can't the sign maker change that, or do they take, are you working with a program that you're gonna?
Within a program that we will send to them and they'll send us
They'll
approved.
do it exact, they're not gonna change.
They're not gonna
No.
manipulate the
Oh, okay,
file.
so you have to get it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
It's meticulous.
Sorry
With
about
Lorena.
I say it's too bad writing and
This is
image.
better.
Yes. Yeah.
That's on our end to fix.
Which is great because sometimes they're worse spellers. You know, so then you end up with how you end up with signs. Like there's one on the way to Maywood, there's a bus that says free appraisals on the side and it has only one P and it drives me. I think about it twice a week.
At least.
Yes.
This might just be a printer thing. It doesn't look like it's. Looks like there's like a little color shift in between these. Is that just?
The print we printed for all of you.
Don't give away the surprise. I was just saying we used a lot of ink today on the printer, so it's probably a printer error.
Made you at least surprised. And so the printer was struggling toward the end. Yes, and we will get a color sample. So when we send this for production, they send us a color sample. So I will confirm that it's going to be.
We can spot check that.
What's the timing on this?
I mean, I would like to get it in the ground.
We would like
this
to
year.
order it before the end of the fiscal year. So as soon as we could get it approved, the better, then we can finesse and finalize and get a purchase order.
But we can, I mean, there's no event that this is happening for, so I'm not, if there are changes that need to happen, I don't want to sacrifice quality for.
But end of fiscal year, that means you basically, meet ideally with the next two meetings to meet that July 1st deadline.
Within the next, we would need to have it ready to be ordered by the middle of June.
So the next meeting.
And also,
Definitely, yes.
you are receiving another, maybe receiving another marker at the next.
The text on the side here, really, really small? Is there any way you guys can?
So, if you see it full size, it may be more of yes, but if you check it and it's still not legible, then yes.
No, it's probably legible, but.
Yes, it is standard on the markers, but I can absolutely, like, if you say this is not okay, then
It's gonna be tabletop or, vertical?
it will be table, slanted table.
Tabletop, so about 3 feet.
Yes, wheelchair accessible height. Yes, so I think the standard is,
That affects.
yeah, yeah, that's true.
Anything else? Okay,
Just about done.
yeah, so let's try out the motion that I had previously and see if it makes sense. Oh, all right. So I move that the HLRB approve the Evelyn Reed SciFX marker, including any outstanding minor text or design edits. That's too in stone or not for anybody, or again, it's any outstanding minor text or design edits. Seems to qualify what we discussed here today, but any seconds? That let's take call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Aiken,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Ms. Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Laporte,
Yes.
Ms. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Meadows. You can do it. Mr. Meyer, I'm sorry, Ms. Meyer.
Yeah.
Mr. Trimble,
Yes.
Mr. Winchell,
Yes.
and Mr. Woodruff.
Yes.
So we'll work with you, Jerry, on your additional edits, okay?
Yeah, that's good, yeah, yeah. We break it up into 4 chunks, really. So with that, it's the chairman's report, and I'm gonna defer the chairman's report today just to Jerry to discuss the Wakefield Manor review.
Yeah, I went to the site plan review committee meeting for Wakefield, the new development, Wakefield Manor, which has been approved, was approved like 10 years ago or something, a long time ago, but we worked very, very hard to get another building to be built on that site that would be compatible with the historic Wakefield Manor. And the developer that we worked with at that did such a good job fitting it in, sold the property to some other developer who of course says it's unbuildable. Okay, and it probably means they paid too much for the property. I don't want to be too cynical here. But so they have proposed what they call a redesign, but it's really a totally different building.
Don't we have to?
I don't know the answer to that. It's
Lauren.
Hi, thank you, Jerry, for going to that meeting. And technically, the HLRB does not have any review authority over the design of the property that isn't covered in the easement as a requirement. The most we can do is attempt to influence the design by comments that I'm able to provide the project team and the applicant, as well as Jerry's influence at the SPRC meetings. But we're trying our best to try and make adjustments so that it's as sensitive as possible to Wakefield Manor and Courthouse Manor.
Yeah, let me say that there were, people from other commissions who also expressed surprise. Like there was, I don't know if you remember the old plan, there was a lot of open space. It's supposed to be garden apartments, okay? So part of the plan was to have a lot of open space. Well, they've taken like what used to be open space and they put a garage underneath it and put like a patio area with grills that is only going to be open. It's like 1 story high, and it's only going to be open to people who live in the building. Okay, so and they want to qualify as open space. I think that's not going to that's not gonna go, okay, just because people, and another big deal, they dropped, I don't know if you remember the roof line, they had put a roof line on it that sort of evoked the Wakefield Manor. Well, they've gotten rid of that. They put a flat roof on and they want to put a swimming pool and what sells now, like what's up in the piers, you know, the rooftop swimming pools. Okay, so it's a flat top building like the Pierce and all the other buildings that are being built along Wilson Boulevard in Boston these days, what they want to put. So I think, you know, they got some pushback from other commissioners, including me, and Sarah Steinberger, I think, is now vice chair of the planning commission, and so I'm not sure that the planning commission has to approve this. So I presume that we will want to be appearing before the planning commission to try to affect what they decide, and then it may be that we will be sending. I'll be recommending that we send a letter to the county board, depending on what comes out of the planning commission, as to whether the county board should approve the design in whatever form. We have another meeting on the May the 15th, so they will probably come back with some designs, and I don't know, but there were other people who also sort of shared views that I expressed that didn't really, to me at least, look like anything like. And but one thing they did, some of the brickwork in Wakefield Manor, they tried to replicate that in terms of the brickwork new building. So it is a brick building, okay, but it's sort of subtle. You almost can't notice it unless they point it out to you, and that may not survive either, because some of the other people said that too complicated. So I don't know, but they said they put it in there because it, it looks like the brickwork. Yeah, so maybe that was anyway. So we'll see where it goes. Any questions?
Thanks for the update. Keep us the rest of that. Yeah. We'll definitely we'll definitely do a letter. I think, I mean, unless, things change drastically. Yeah.
I probably should have got the slides and sent them to you, because they did show us slides, and I thought, oh, I should have. Then it wasn't until this afternoon.
It should be on the website though, for the
Yeah, they should be on the
SBOC.
website.
Yeah.
If you're interested in looking at the slides, they are on the website. You could, I think, just one look at it. I think you'll agree with most everything I said.
Just for reference, is there any way to see what was proposed previously? Like, I guess now.
Oh, they showed pictures of what was proposed and what's proposed now.
It's evolved.
It's very, very different.
Okay.
It's very different.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you for participating in that.
Yeah.
Any other chair report?
That's no chair report today.
Okay.
We'll just dive into the stuff.
We've got a quick staff report. So we are pleased to announce, if you saw Michael's email this afternoon, if you subscribe to our newsletter, we have our draft planning document that was released to the public today. It's no longer called the Historic Preservation Master Plan. We have rebranded and renamed to be the Historic and Cultural Resources Plan. So we printed out copies for all of you here today. If you would like to take your time and start reading through it and coming up with your comments, questions, suggestions. And a reminder to everybody, we have a week from today, a special meeting for the HLRB all about the plan. So this is going to be your opportunity to get an overview direct from our consultant who is coming in for this meeting. We can take as long or as little time as you all want to discuss it. Just know that this is not going to be your only opportunity to sit with the plan. We will bring this back to you in a final form, most likely in August. But we wanted to make sure that you, as our Preservation Commission, had some time with it. So we were hoping we were going to have it a little bit earlier, but we got it out today. And for those of you who are not here this evening, we will send you copies so you can have paper copies if you'd like. Also on the website, I would direct you to, if you want to look at it digitally, just search historic preservation on the county website. It should get you to our homepage directly. There's all sorts of additional information on there. We have a summary of the plan in case you don't want to start by reading the whole thing. We have a video recording that also provides a summary starring our one and only Michael. We also have an online feedback opportunity that also went live today that is going to be available until June 20th. So please feel free to give us your feedback through that comment opportunity. You can share the links to the plan. You can share the feedback questions with your friends, your neighbors, your family. We really would appreciate any help that you can offer to kind of help spread the word about the draft. And I will pass these out as Michael gives you a quick update about the next big thing that's happening in the planning process on May 6th.
The last time you'll hear me talk about our big event coming up, because it's happening May 6th, so a week before our May HALRB meeting.
Special meetings.
The night before, yeah, maybe I'll mention that special meeting. It's our open house event on Saturday, May 6th from 12 to 3. Thank you again to those of you who have signed up to volunteer. If there are others who are interested, let me know. We have plenty of room and opportunities and need for the extra hands on that day. Again, it's happening at the Central Library Auditorium, and Serena shared the flyer that we have about the event. So if you don't mind sharing that with anybody and everybody, just to really help promote it. It's open to the entire community, and we would love to have a really solid turnout. It's one of the many ways that people can learn about the plan, but also engage directly with us and then provide their feedback in real time. So we would greatly appreciate that. And the other thing that we have coming up are a lot of pop-up events. So we are going to a bunch of different locations across the county, but we'll be at farmers markets. We're going to be at the Columbia Pike Blues Festival. We are going to be at the Earth Day celebration on Langston Boulevard this Sunday. Lauren's going to be staffing that one. So come say hi. And if you have any interest in helping out with any of those, feel free to reach out, and I'll get you signed up for something.
Any questions for us?
Do you have a list of the pop-ups and when they are?
I can talk to you about that, the different dates and opportunities. Yeah, I can connect with you on email.
This was a long meeting. That's all we got.
Yeah.
Oh, Bob. We adjourned, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, we're adjourned.
Oh, wait.
That's my disappointment.
No, not yet.
No.